Hey guys, it's been a few days. Went away for 4th of July weekend. Took a long weekend camping with the kids, and haven't been able to do much on the lathe here. Yesterday, which was Sunday, we got home, got everything unloaded, relaxed a little bit. You've never been exhausted coming home from a vacation until you've been on vacation with 3 boys. Anyways, so I did manage to meander down here yesterday, and I started working out the shims for the clearance on the rear. And boy, I was really shocked at how much I've been putting in here for shimming, and still when I tighten down it locks up. So that tells me that originally there must have been a pretty good sized shim pack underneath this bearing cap. And what I suspect happened is I suspect at some point somebody had this apart and lost or just forgot to put back in the shim packs when they were done. And then I think what that person did was they probably just kept this cap loose so that it could turn. And the guy I bought this from, now that I think of it, I think he actually even mentioned that to me, that he believed that he was having a problem with this locking up, and I can certainly see why. So I'm at the point now where I'm putting in thicker and thicker shims. I was adding up some shim stuff, not that really thin stuff, but some of the thicker stuff. And I got to the point where it's like, wow, I need something really thick in there. So I cut this copper that I had there. Oops. It would help if I turned it on. Zero it. So this is 41 thousandths. This is like 7 or 8 thousandths. So there's like 48 thousandths in there now. I don't remember where I left off last night. I wasn't videoing last night because I figured, well, this is just a repeat of what was going on over here. And I debated whether or not bother even videoing this, but I just thought it would be interesting maybe to someone else to see how much this is supposed to be shimmed up, and it wasn't. Still kind of blows my mind that somebody would just leave it like that. So for the time being, I'm not notching this out. I'm just putting it at the edge there to get a rough idea if we're in the ballpark. Well, that's a good way to slice your finger, if you're looking for a good way to slice your finger. Alright, so all I'm doing here is tightening down so they can't move these shims anymore, and you can see that's still pretty locked up, but I can move it now. It's not completely locked up, so it's improving. It's still amazing to me how much I've got in there, and it's still tight. And I know I don't have the cap on backwards because there was a kind of a rub line on here on this side that corresponded to the height of this spacer right here. There's a big spacer washer right there. Okay, or thrust washer maybe would be a better definition of that. As opposed to on this side, it's really the side of the gear is what rubs on that. So the sides of this phosphorized bronze bearing material was rubbed in a way that definitely gave away how this was on here. In case anybody's wondered if maybe I had this on backwards and if that was causing a problem. So I think now, because I'm close, I think now I'll try a piece of the 2000th shim stock. This is just a scrap that I had laying on the bench. I'm going to use that. tried notching this other piece here, and it's got a high area. That might be throwing things off. Alright, try two more. Getting close now though, so I think I want to make these other shims more permanent so I can get more precise readings. So, like the problem with this one is that when I tried to cut this out with tin snips, I ended up curling the edge there, so that's not really good. Alright, so what I just did was I scribed the line that's gives me a center line, kind of just eyeballed it to the center of this screw hole, and then I scribed a little, I held this on the side here to mark where the back of the hole is, so that's going to be the back of my notch, and I scribed a little mark there, and then I took a steel scale as a straight edge, scribed the line straight across. So I know that I basically want a U-shaped slot roughly in this area here, and the back of it's got to be up to that line. Okay, now this is pretty thick, so if I try and cut this with tin snips, I'm going to have to use so much force it's going to deform the whole thing. So the trick is I want to cut this hole or notch and not deform the heck out of this. If I try and use a drill, well, I think that's also going to deform it some, and I'll probably end up with a nasty burr on the edge there. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to find an end mill, really sharp end mill, and I'm going to try something I've never done before, which is I'm going to put an end mill in my drill press and use it to make a plunge cut and see whether or not that'll cut a nice clean hole. This is only copper, so it should cut it easily. Alright, so I'm here in the dark corner around from the cabinet where I don't have an overhead light, so I got my temporary light just on there so I can see what I'm doing. So the video is probably not going to be very good. What a surprise. So what I did was I mounted an end mill in here. Now I don't know if there's going to be enough end clearance for this thing to even want to start to cut, but we'll try it, see what happens. I mean, there's a number of problems with trying to use an end mill in a drill press. The first and most obvious is that you have nowhere near the precision. I mean, I can feel this rocking back and forth, this spindle. So that's one of the problems. This is hardened. This is tool steel, and I'm trying to grab it with the jaws of the chuck, so that's not the greatest situation either, but it should work. I don't think the end mills are that much harder than the shank on a drill bit, really. So this is my setup here. I'm just using some of these hold downs from the kit for the milling machine, and it occurs to me that what I think I'm going to do, because I actually think this is going to work, and if it fails, you will see the video. You will see the results. I'm not going to delete it. I've been told on more than one comment on other videos, people like the fact that I don't hide my mistakes. Okay, so I'm going to just stack the two of these together. And I'm bringing the just eyeballing this. I get the top one right where I want it now, so if I can just get the bottom one to shift over. Again, I made sure that my end mill lines up with the hole below in the table so that I don't end up having a accident and making a boo-boo to my table. Well, you know, we already know this doesn't have to be spot on in this particular application. The temptation would be to just hold that down with my fingers and try and cut it, but if it gets grabbed by the end mill and spun quickly, and then that corner will come around and slice you in a way that you would really wish you never tried to hold it. Oh, come on now. These are my shortest studs and they're still a little bit too long, so I need a washer in there. Son of a gun. Be right back. Alright, be it ever so horrid, this is the setup I'm going with. Now, hopefully, that'll work. I'm advancing it very slowly. Alright, so that's through the top one, and the plate's flexing enough so that I got a little bit of a gap between the top and the bottom one, so I guess maybe I should have just cut these individually one at a time, but I'm through the top one now. So we'll push onward. Maybe a sacrificial piece underneath would have been a good idea. Yeah, if I had to do it again, what I would do is I'd have a third piece in the bottom there, maybe even a piece of steel, and that would give it a really stiff support on the bottom. Alright, so there's my cut. Now, it's not really a notch at this point because of the circumference. It comes back and I've got this little tang that sticks out at the bottom there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just loosen this up a little bit, slide this back just a little bit, and bring the cutter down and let the cutter actually take care of those two little areas for me. Not quite far enough. That should do it. Now I have a good old, honest to goodness notch in both of these. And you can see the problem because I didn't have a backup plate on this one. Cut this one nice, didn't deform it. Got through and started putting too much pressure on the second one here, and the second one's deformed. So I'm not too happy about that. But I'm going to try and just straighten that out with the ball peen. But of course, every time I whack this with the hammer, I'm gonna change the characteristics of the thickness of this shim. Because this isn't shim stock or anything, this is just some, looks like copper plate that I had. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Here's the one that deformed. I just tapped this lightly on a flat surface with the ball peen. And it's because it's soft copper, it really didn't end up doing too much damage to it, I don't think. So now the next thing I want to do is probably scribe a line here, figure out how much of this stuff I want to cut off so I don't have so much of it hanging out. Same reason why I cut it off over here, I didn't really want the sharp edges sticking out. Alright, so I scribed a line using the top bearing cap as a guide, cut it with tin snips, and then I just hit it with the wire wheel on the edge to remove the burr. So, one down, one to go, as far as those thick ones go. Alright, I got the finished product. I got my shims in, I got them all trimmed, and in the end it ended up being the large copper shim, the flashing shim, which I think that ended up being 38 thousandths right there, and then 3 2,000th shims on each side, so another 6 thousandths. So it ended up taking like around 45 thousandths, but at that much shim, if I push down, you can see that the needle deflects down. That means that I know that my indicator is in a good position there. And if I pull up hard, I can get 4 divisions on this indicator, which again, this is a 1/2 thousandths per division indicator. This is a Brown and Sharp best test. So that gives me 2 thousandths, which is right where I want to be, 2 to 3 thousandths oil clearance. So I'm happy with that, and I've got that all tightened down and done. So now I've got one more clearance I've got to set, and that's, well, as you can see, this is out here by a mile right now, but it's the end play. I've got to set that. I just realized it was kind of tight on that shot, but basically you can see the thrust washer in here. I got this big space. This gear is going to come over, and this collar on the end here is going to get tightened up, and I need to tighten it up to a point where the spindle's able to move in and out this way no more than 2 to 3 thousandths, and that's how you set the end play. Alright, so this gear presses on the end of the spindle here, and it's a bit of a tight fit, and you can see I've got quite a ways to go. I've got probably 1/4 of an inch that I've got to push this on. And I tried putting like some scrap bearings I had on here as spacers and tapping. The problem is that's pushing the whole spindle out the other end and causing a gap at the headstock end, which it's not going to work. And then when I tap that back, my space is back. So I'm kind of stuck in a vicious circle there. Now I could try and put this spanner nut on here and tighten the spanner nut and use the force of the tightening of the spanner nut to push this on, but that I just tried that, and that's really tight. So I really don't want to do that. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to find some awl thread and stick it through the bore in the headstock and rig something up so that I can actually use the awl thread to push this on. Should be simple enough. Actually, I didn't have any awl thread long enough, but I have some awl thread that's the size of these long, tall nut things here that came with the hold down set for the mill. So just use that to put 2 pieces together, and that's going to be long enough. So here's my setup down this end. I got my 2 old bearings that I got to press against the gear. They have an ID that fits over that spindle end, and I actually got this small belt pulley. It's perfect fit on there, and that can't go through that inner race of that bearing. And let me just put this nut on here. Now I just got to rig something up on the other end to keep it from being able to pull through the spindle end, and I should be able to tighten this nut and force that on. Alright, let's see if this works. It's working. Camera's kind of in my way. Well, here's a scrap of that 2 thousandths stock. Just stick that in there. Just starting to put a little drag on that now. Now that's getting a little tight. Now that's tight. Alright, so I think what I want to do now is I want to take my little rigging, my little puller contraption out, snug up my nut on the end of the spindle here, and then set my indicator in position to check the end play. I don't know why that gets tight right there at the end. Well, I tell you, I think this nut actually has a taper to it. That would certainly explain why it gets tight near the end there. Right there, it tightens up quite a bit. You knew that was going to happen. Ow! Should have known that was going to happen. You son of a gun! Darn, that hurt. The locking set screw is all the way loose, so I'm surprised it's so tight. There was no other washer or anything that went in there, right? I blooded my knuckle. I think I'll stop right there and set up my indicator. Check the clearance at that point just for giggles. Alrighty, now it seems to me that this is a good surface right here to indicate off of for this purpose, for this particular measurement. So what I'm measuring now is I'm measuring the end play of the shaft. So you have to have a little bit of clearance in there, obviously. Otherwise this will be tightening against the ends of the phosphorus bronze bearings there. There is only basically a thrust washer in there, and the oil leaks out from along those grooves in the caps there and lubricates that a little bit. Now I think I had read on a South Bend forum or somewhere, or one of the other lathe forums, about an upgrade that people have done where they've actually removed this solid steel washer and replaced it with a thrust bearing. You know, they make thrust bearings now that have these tiny little needles in them, little tiny needle bearings, and you can imagine that, you know, if you get one the right size and stick it in there, it probably would be an improvement. But for my purposes, I'm just going to leave this like this for now. Alright, so where was I? Oh, for those of you who watch my channel all the time, you've probably never seen this indicator, this magnetic indicator stand base before. And I had the best test, but this is a new stand. This is part of a lot I bought at an auction, on-site auction a couple weeks ago, and I'll show you some of the goodies, the other two goodies I picked up. I actually bought 2 lots, no, 3 lots. I bought 3 lots total, and I'll hit that with an upcoming garage sale find, or whatever I end up calling it, episode. But I had a need for this, and you know, I have the other stand like this that I got from a pile of junk a while back. You guys had seen that one. You know, it's just magnetic all the time. The knob is broken off and it's a rusty piece of junk, but it was all I had for magnetic indicator bases. So now I have this. I mean, it's a made in China, it's cheapy, but it works, and better than that rusty piece of junk I had. And this wasn't what I was bidding on. This was in a lot with 2 other pieces. I wanted one of the 3 pieces. This is just gravy. It occurs to me this is not the right sort of indicator to use for this job if I want to actually be able to see what I'm doing. Well, here, reposition the camera, I guess. Looks like I got 3/1000ths right there. So what I'm doing is I'm pulling out on the gear here as far as I can, and then I push back in. If I push back in, I can get it to go. Well, it's hard to zero the indicator without messing with the position of it or whatever. But right now, yeah, it's actually more than that. I can tap it. Oops. Yeah, that's quite a bit actually. Alright, so I definitely need to be tighter on this. Oh, I'm bleeding again. Medic! Alright, so it occurs to me if I tap this so that's all the way out, then I should be able to actually watch that indicator drop as I tighten this. Anyway, I finally closed this gap up between the spanner nut and the back of the gear. So now I know I'm actually really pushing on that gear. I need this on here. So I want to be able to tap on the, yeah, that's right, I'm going to tap on the nose of the spindle, but I'm gonna use the dead blow mallet. Alright, I'm at about 2.5 thousandths past the 10. Dummy. And I hate getting cut right on the knuckle like that. Every time you bend your finger, it reopens. Might have to put a band-aid on it. Okay, so I did zero the indicator, and so now it looks like I got 4.5 thousandths in there right now. So I think that's too much, but I'm going to go double check the, oh actually it's a South Bend manual that I'm using, so, because I couldn't find a Vernon manual. Alright, it's later that evening, and I had to go work and do some other stuff. But I did check on the clearance issue here, and it's supposed to be 1 to 2 thousandths. So could have a minimum of 1 thousandth of clearance in end play and a maximum of 2. So looks like I'm at 4. Yeah, I'm at 4. So, if I want to get down to 2 thousandths, 4 minus 2 is 2. I can actually do math faster than that, but that noise that I just heard, I was just trying to figure out what that was. Somebody dropped something upstairs in the kitchen. So, what I should be able to do is, I should be able to tighten this and watch that indicator drop 2 thousandths and know at that point that I'm where I want to be, except for the fact that I can't find the spanner. Well, it's still the same. That didn't really do anything. Wow, that made a big difference. That little bit of turning made a big difference there. Wow. It's not quite 1 thousandth. So now I'm actually a little too tight. Back it off a hair. Try that right there. That looks like 1 thousandth. Yeah, it's actually a hair over. It's a hair over 1 thousandth. Yeah, I like it. So now that I've got the end plate set, I put some oil in this cup. And I've got to tighten this locking screw. Things are looking up. I think by the end of July I will be making chips with this thing. You'd think since it's only July 6th that it'd be even sooner than that, but who knows. I could end up getting really busy with work and end up not being able to get down here at all. It's quite possible. So I think the next thing I'm probably going to mess with, well, I'm not going to start tonight, is putting the back gear assembly shaft in, all that stuff. Fortunately, I've got other obligations this evening.